What's up, gamers? This is Battle Mallet Podcast, episode 37, Exiled Breaching the Nethermaze. For anyone that isn't familiar, this is a podcast delving into the minds of four busy gamers, their annual journey to the Nova Open. We're still excited that that's happening this year, but we're not quite holding our breath yet. Playing games that we love and balancing life with those games. Tonight, I am joined by Trace Hyde.
What's up? What's up?
Jason Table New Murray.
Are you sure it's episode 37 or you want to start again?
No, just the second start is all I need.
Is all you need.
Yep. And I am Jared Johnson, and we're pretty excited about tonight's episode because they just announced today that we are going to get not one, not two, but three new warbands up for pre-order next Sunday in the Nethermaze core set box and the Exiled Dead. And in this weekend's White Dwarf, there's a new Rivals deck. So a lot of content to cover. So in this episode, we'll walk through the Maze Breachers Rivals deck that's featured in White Dwarf 475, I believe.
It's a whole lot of mazes and breaching.
Mazes and breaching, yep. Breaching those nethers. And then, we're just going to give our off-the-cuff reactions to the new core set, the sculpts, what we can see from that. And but before we do that, it's always good to catch up with what everybody's been up to. So Trace is on camera. I can see him fiddling with some hobby stuff. What you been up to, Trace?
You shut your mouth. I have been painting, and I have been hobbying pretty hard on, I think I talked about a few episodes ago, working on a Madripoor themed Marvel Crisis Protocol board. And what I'm doing currently, for those who are listening or watching via radio, I guess you could say, is I'm creating some HVAC units to put on the top of my Madripoor buildings made from some scraps from other bits of games that we've got. So I've been doing that. And then I finished painting Kraven the Hunter, posted it on the Facebook page, and I think Jared linked it through the Twitter page as well. He was a lot of fun to paint. Lots of fur textures and freehand and nonsense that I just proceeded to cover up with blank ink. So fun stuff.
Nice. Yeah, that is good.
What about you?
So continuing the path of painting up Marvel Crisis Protocol miniatures, I wrapped up Baron Zemo right before we started recording tonight. So of all of the Marvel Crisis Protocol miniatures that I own, I only have one left to paint, and that's Dr. Octopus. So I think since the last time we recorded, trying to get myself caught up here, I have built a squad of Corsairs, all with shuriken rifles, so that, when we never play 40k again, I have an actual usable unit of them. But also it helps me build out a roster for Kill Team so that I can sub out dudes with rifles for that. And then I have painted Gambit, Rogue, Spider-Man, Red Skull, Black Widow, Crossbones, and like I just mentioned, Baron Zemo. So I've been trying to put some work in. Trying to finish up these Marvel Crisis Protocol miniatures so that my hobby queue is clear for the 3 warbands that I'm going to get in 2 weeks. I thought I was doing good getting caught up, but here we are. Jason?
A lot. Exciting stuff. A lot has been going on. For me, hobby's been a little bit of a struggle. So some of you guys have had open days to play, and I haven't been able to join because of just scheduling. I missed a Monday. I'm going to miss this coming Monday, which would be our every 2-week kind of play session. I missed a Thursday with Danny last week. Yeah. So, and the reason for that, I think in the last episode we talked about I'm a broker arm rollerblading. So there was 1 year trip to set it, 1 year trip to put 6 screws and a plate into her arm. And then, of course, some follow-up doctor visits, missed time from work, so having to catch that up. And then it was last week. They're all running together. All I know is within 31 days, all of this happened. Then Aiden fell into a dresser, like they were messing around before bath time. So my little son fell into it's more of an end table, like, and split his ear open. So we went back to the ER for that. And then that following Wednesday, we had a pipe rupture in our wall and flood our kitchen and bathroom and garage. And that took some more days worth of work away, as well as like just trying to get that up. So everything will be fine, but it has put a crimp in my hobby style and getting games in. But I still have been very active in that. I picked up the one unit. So I've kind of finalized my list for Nova on Marvel Crisis Protocol. I'm playing Avengers, no shock there. I did send Thor off to get painted, so that'll be the only model that I feel that isn't painted by me, and it's just because I'm afraid to paint Thor because he's my favorite character. But then I picked up Nick Fury because Nick Fury is going to round out my list, and I put him together the other night, as well as I had to reassemble not one, not two, not three, not four, not five, not six, but 7 MCP models, because I was trying to be a good father and I was on a conference call for work, and my son was playing in the room and broke 7 MCP models.
Oh no.
Luckily there was some damage to like Hela, like one of her horns is just gone. But it's okay. Her head was completely torn off. So at least I found the head, put the head back on. And then what's the guy from Black Order that throws stuff with his mind?
Ebony Maw.
Yes.
Ebony Maw was ripped off his base. And that one took a little bit of, hobbying up. But he's back on the base, and, he's not the same kind of build as everybody else, but it's fine. Like you wouldn't notice it if I didn't tell you that his rocks sit a little to the left and on the piece of metal. So that was fun. Other than that, just super excited for all the stuff that's out for Underworlds. Really excited to hopefully chat about some of the stuff that's going out in the community out there right now. It seems like there's a lot of growing steam behind certain formats. And then just the Adepticon aftermath. Like I've played a lot of decks, tried a lot of decks from that whole tournament. So yeah, there's a lot going on both personally and in games, but I'm sorry, gentlemen, I've missed 4 play dates. Like I'm a little kid. I missed 4 play dates.
I know, it's sad.
2 scheduled, 1 with Danny, and then Trace had a day where we could have played, but I just had missed too much work, so I could not squeeze that out. So
it's all right, man. We'll get him in.
Oh, but another cool note is, we read to the kids every night at bath time, and forever I've been trying to start one of those they're like the younger kids Warhammer books.
Sure.
And we got a sampler. I want to say it was at Nova because it's 2019.
Yep.
Where it's Lifestone. It's like a AOS one, and Emma loves it. So now I got to track down the full book because we read that the other night. It's only like 3 chapters and a prologue, and she was in it. She's like, "This is awesome." So
is that the one that follows it starts the little girl? She's like a slave in Akshi.
Yes.
I have that. I can.
Oh, you have the whole book?
I do. I tried it. My son was not as interested, so I can flip it to you.
That would be fantastic.
In the meantime, so, yeah.
Did you read it to him, or did he try to read it himself?
I did read it to him, yeah, and it just didn't capture him, I guess. I don't know. It's fine.
There are some points even in the little thing that I was like, oh, this might be like Skaven appear in it. So I was like, oh, this could be like late night craziness.
Yeah.
And No, she liked it. So
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's great.
It's pretty cool. I showed my son and daughter the painted Marvel Crisis Protocol miniatures, and then my daughter said, "Hey, Dad, can I play with Captain Marvel?" And I was like, "Yes." So she did. She took Captain Marvel into her room, and I don't know what they were doing, but they were playing or whatever. And I just gently reminded her, like, hey, just remember, she's not like a real toy. She's like a figure, so you just got to be careful with her. And so she was like, they were playing, doing something. She was attacking some people and flying around and rescuing people. As I overheard it, as I was straightening up my office, I could hear them across the hall, and she, they had to go downstairs to get ready for the day or whatever. And I'm like, "Hey, Adam, can I have Captain Marvel back?" And she's like, "Oh yeah, Dad, here she is." And she like picks her up by the base, carries her by the base, and hands her back to me. I'm like, "I've taught you well." I'm so
really
proud.
Cool. That's really cool.
But I've lost zombies and skeletons to my children, letting them play with them. So
I knew it was going to be bad. Like he had a truck, and he was just
that'll do her.
Just slamming into stuff, and just didn't want to yell, just breathe. And I guess I just I'm fortunate enough where I could, if something was really really messed up, I could just get another one. They weren't painted. If they were painted, it would have been a different story.
Sure.
And but I'd rather him play with them and enjoy playing with them. So in the future, hopefully he gets hooked. So
yep.
It's the same thing with all my McFarlane toys. I would have not opened, but he wanted them open, and they were like submerged in Play-Doh the other day. So nice. I had to like get Play-Doh out of a Sister of Battle and a Space Marine.
Nice. But he was playing
with
the Heroes of the Imperium, so
that's fine.
Hard to be mad about that. That's awesome. Well, yeah, I mean, I guess that covers it. We do have our Monday play group. I should be able to go, and I've reached out to a couple of the other local gamers, and they're planning on showing up too. So hopefully we'll get some Underworlds in there, and we can build the hype for the new semi-season core set, whatever they're calling it, and the new warband. So, well, carry the torch, Jason.
Well, I appreciate it. Appreciate it.
But I guess with that, we'll take a break here, and when we come back, we will talk about Breaching the Maze with the Maze Breachers Rivals deck.
And we're back. And here we are with, this is a historic moment. Not only in White Dwarf do we have a new Rivals deck, but I got my White Dwarf on time. The day it came out.
I think that's more groundbreaking than anything.
It is because normally it's a couple weeks late. It's about a week and a half, 2 weeks late, which is fine. But this one I was very glad because they have a glory point section in almost every White Dwarf, but this one I'm super super excited to talk about because Dave Sanders writes an article and talks about a brand new Rivals deck, and also talks about Rivals in general, like why it was created and kind of where it lives in the world of Underworlds. He calls it the Invisible Walls. A little shout back to a card from season 1. Jared, you read the whole article, like
yeah.
What were your thoughts on his thoughts of 3 paragraphs of Invisible Walls?
Yeah, so he kind of opens the article and talking about so like there's a section in the article called Invisible Walls, and he basically says it's a deck building game, but deck building is not for everyone, and it could be challenging for new players. And I mean, that's certainly been our experience, and one of our favorite things about Beastgrave was that you could open the box and there were faction specific decks, because I think that Shadespire and Nightvault had starter decks for both warbands, but if you didn't keep those cards together or like write them down in some fashion or form, once you like reorganize your cards or put them in number order or whatever you did, suddenly that information was lost. Beastgrave, starting with Beastgrave, you had a 32 card deck with the Warband faction symbol on them. And that has been the trend moving forward. And we loved it because we could sit new players down and say, look, you don't have to build anything. These are the Wild Hunt cards. These are the Gashrax Despoilers cards. And we can just play a game. And then they announced it as an actual format. And it's been great because now you don't have to build a deck to play the game. And then the other thing that he called out was the fact that in the championship format, where you have multiple seasons worth of universal cards available, and that can, that's numbering what? Where are we in the universal card pool right now? 500 plus?
Yeah, it's like 500 or 600 by the time everything was rolled out. So.
Yeah, it means that if a newer player sits down across the table from a veteran player and they haven't bought everything, but the veteran player has, then now they're able to build, probably a more efficient, stronger deck. And that's another challenge to playing Underworlds.
Or a returning player.
Or a returning player in Trace's case, where maybe he hasn't been caught up, or he's bought everything because he loves the models, but he hasn't read through all the cards. And that's where he jumps into the next section, which is subtitled Open Shuffle Play.
Yeah, which he basically just breaks it down into the fact that you build your models and you grab their deck and you're on the table playing. And that's where Rivals has lived for us. It's what's kind of jazzed up our scene. And this deck, this Maze Breachers, really brings it home to me because now we've seen Silent Menace, Illusory Might, Maze Breachers, we have the Essentials deck, and plus all the Warband decks. So now it's really starting to gain momentum, and there's a lot of content and different things there. So I'm not just stuck playing whatever Warband deck it is. Maybe I'm playing Canaan's Reapers and I want to try something different. I have options now.
Yeah.
And then also as a veteran player, allows me to scale. Maybe I want to play Crushas, which are, doing very well in Rivals because of their wound count, but I want to play it on hard mode, so I use the Silent Menace deck, right? So, and I just, to close out the article before we get into the deck, he goes on to break down all the current Rivals decks there are. He gives tips on, what the design philosophy is behind the deck, and then warbands to use, and just really good tips. It's probably one of the better articles that I've read on in the White Dwarf for Glory Points. But then let's just jump into Maze Breachers as a rival deck. So again, this is a universal rival deck, and the cool thing about this is it is built from Harrow Deep cards. So this is a 12 10 deck, 12 objectives, 10 gambits, and 10 upgrades that are pulled from the universal pool of Harrow Deep and Black Powder's Buccaneers universals. So that is really cool. If you bought in, you now have another deck.
Yep. And now you can walk backwards and pick a warband out, and now you have other options for playing that warband, which is awesome. We're not going to run through all of the card names here, but there will be a link both in the show notes and the blog that accompanies this article or this episode to the deck list. It'll be an Underworlds DB deck list for anyone that isn't familiar. Shameless plug here. It's probably our favorite deck building site, but we're going to end up stop using it, I guess, because we're just going to play Rivals all the time. But on the rare occasion that we do play something in the championship format, it's our go-to tool, but there are others out there that are available.
So wait, you're telling me that the cards that you already own, if you bought those two things,
yep,
you now have basically a free deck for you to use?
You do.
In this format, yes.
Yep.
Holy.
Yep. All you have to do is, just take the cards and put them in order just like you would anything else.
Well, that's just wonderful.
We
That's
like
value.
it.
That's value.
It is value.
Good job, GW.
I know, right? Tip of the hat to them. And
Yeah.
you know what, Trace? It's not just a free rule set or a free deck. When I say free, like you have paid for the 2 packs that they're built out of.
Right. What I mean is, it's the same thing as you buying kill team rules for all of your 40K models that you already owned.
Yes.
Essentially. So like you're just netting more value out of your things that you already bought, which is great.
Correct.
Yeah.
And the cool thing is this deck is no slouch either. Like my initial pass over the deck is it's functional and it builds through synergies and some cool play styles. So with that, well, actually, before we jump into the top objectives, Jared, and we'll just run down our thing like we normally do.
Yep.
What are your guys' thoughts of like additional content through White Dwarf? Because we've seen this in other games, and sometimes it's like, oh, it's great, but then you're chasing a White Dwarf. Like, what is your thoughts here?
I think it's a good way to expand again on things that may not be up for formal renewal for a while. So if we're looking at it from like kill team perspective, right? You took something that was in a compendium, and now, mind you, the some of those compendium kill teams have now been like replaced entirely with these White Dwarf editions, which I don't really love, because if you missed out and you missed that particular issue of the White Dwarf, then if somebody asks you to produce the paper copy of that thing to use it at a tournament or whatever, that's going to be kind of hard. But it is, I like it personally, because typically the average GW consumer is probably going to be checking the Warhammer community page fairly often. Not like every day, but often enough to where you would probably see that there is something in this issue of White Dwarf that you might want to pick it up if you're looking to expand on something that you have. So yeah. I like it. I think it's a good way to inject some, again, more value for things that you might already own. So, like for example, I have Admech in the cabinet over there. I bought the White Dwarf that had the Hunter clade, and now I have a fully functional kill team with all the bells and whistles of the ones that came in like the Nachman box and stuff. So yeah. I think it's cool. I mean, what do you guys think?
Yeah, so I think it's a good way to, because I think you touched on this briefly. I think it's a good way to keep certain rule sets more in line with the latest releases without having to release a whole battle tome or codex. They've done it for several Age of Sigmar armies to kind of bring them more in line with the current design space. The Ossiarch Bone Reapers got an update in a White Dwarf that gave them some additional rules. I think that matter in the current state of Age of Sigmar. They've also released sub-faction rules in White Dwarfs for 40K. I mean, the Tyranid army that was, for lack of a better word, crushing tournaments.
I see what you did there. Good job.
The Crusher Stampede was released in a White Dwarf. Right? I'm not crazy about that.
No, you're right.
Yeah, because I mean, I know there are other armies of renown that were released in other campaign books, but it's just it's a cool way to add to the design space to keep certain factions in line or up to date when maybe their roadmap for an update is further down the road. And I like that this pattern will now exist for Warhammer Underworlds, where you can get more bang for your buck, and get more styles of play based on owning a White Dwarf. And I mean, this isn't the first time they've done it for Underworlds. I mean, we had the Gargant. Right? Yeah. That was the first thing that we did, and it's a heck of fun way to play this game.
Yes. The only thing I'll say about the Gargant is how many times have we busted out the Gargants?
I mean, that's fair.
Yeah.
This is a very different and much more tangible injection of content for this game. And it makes me happy for the Underworlds community. And as somebody who has those cards and is playing Rivals primarily now I have a whole nother set of cards that I can use. So like I can just bust that deck out and just run with it.
Yeah.
Or in Rivals Plus, like there's some decent cards in that deck that you could just inject in some, if you're playing the Rivals Plus format. No, I think it is a much more realistic expansion on the game.
Yeah.
Over the Gargant. Or there was another one that they did too.
The FOMO. The Fomoroid Crusher.
There was a couple. There's Fomoroid Crusher was a community thing, and then there was an Avatar.
There was a solo one too, right? Wasn't there a solo one during the peak of COVID?
That was FOMO.
Well, that was FOMO. Okay.
Yeah. I think for me, like just to touch on it and put a nail in this with the White Dwarf content is for Underworlds in this style, you don't need the White Dwarf, right? And that's really where it lives for me. Like it's great that you go buy the White Dwarf, you get it today, but let's say 6 months, 7 months when this copy is hard to find, the deck will be out there. So, and it's just a deck. It's not a rule set. So you get the extra value. And the other cool thing that I really like about it is because it was designed by one of the designers for the game, you can get a glimpse of his mindset when he was designing the cards and like, for example, stagger tokens or hunter and brawlers. Like it's kind of like there's synergies in here. Like, oh yeah, that's why this card lived. And then you could score this card. For example, because this is where we'll jump into our top 3, and this is not one of our top 3. Out for the count is a hybrid objective. Score this in the end phase that each surviving enemy fighter is staggered, or 3 or more enemy fighters are staggered. Like we would never play that card, ever. Like stagger doesn't get put out there all that often. But in this deck, there's a lot of ways to stagger people. So, yeah, it's cool just to get that little glimpse of what he may have been thinking when he was designing the cards and then putting them into a deck. So, without further ado, Rivals format, Maze Breachers Rivals deck. Jared, what are our top 3 objectives? You can start with the first one. What are we looking for our opening hand?
Yeah, so based on the design of the deck, kind of the play style, the theme that goes into it, there's a lot of interaction. Contest of Equals is easily the surge that you want in hand going into your opening round. So it's a surge objective. Score this immediately after a failed attack action if the attack roll and defense roll have the same number of successes. And it is clarified that 0 is a number. So if I whiff on my attack and you whiff on your defense, this card scores. If I roll a single success and you roll a crit defense, this card still scores. So there's going to be a lot of interaction when you're trying to do everything else in this deck anyway. And also, for anyone that isn't familiar, Contest of Equals is super popular in the championship format. So much so that it's restricted. So yeah. It's a card that sees play in just about every deck. So it is.
I can squeeze it in.
Yeah. It'll be one. It'll be one that you see.
One of the points here for the full objective thing is there's only 4 surges, so it's 4 and 8. But these surges are really, really solid. So I don't think it struggles with only having 4 surges. Trace, what objective are you taking?
There's some paths that need to be made.
So you're make a path.
I'm gonna pick make a path. I really like this card, and this card stuck out to me just from a aggro player's point of view. It says duel score this in an end phase if your leader has one or more charge tokens and is in enemy territory, and one or more enemy fighters are out of action. So at face value, like you would think that this, it's not great, but there's no qualifier on where that enemy fighter has to be when they just have to be out of action. So they can be trying to get in your area, because we all know that a lot of the decks right now want to try and get in your territory and then sit on an objective and then score some glory off of the objective or whatever. So kill the dude and then just use your last activation to charge your leader, or charge your leader the next to last activation and just make sure that they're towed into enemy territory, and boom, you've scored this card. Not all that difficult to do. And I just think it's solid and it's predictable. Like you might not score it the first round, but if you have it in your hand the first round and you manage to pick off a fighter, all bets are off. I think that you could pretty reliably score it.
Yeah. And that pairs well with the one that I'm going to take, and that's Fearless Seekers. I think I've talked about this before on the show. It's one of my favorite cards in championship format, and it's score this in an end phase if 2 or more friendly fighters are on a feature token in an enemy territory. Keywords here: feature tokens in enemy territory. So they don't have to be objectives. They don't necessarily have to be gloom. They just have to be a feature token and in enemy territory. So all about placing those feature tokens as the game starts and putting them in places where you can just jump on them early and get the benefits of gloom. So your opponent can take you out. And that's just the 3 objectives that stand out to us to kind of get started. Again, the surges are pretty good here to get the deck rolling and an easy score. But moving on to gambits, another solid offering of 10 gambits. But Trace, what one are you taking out of here?
The gambit that really stood out to me, just because, I back in the day whenever I played a lot, movement shenanigans were always a top priority. And I think that still holds water, for lack of better terminology. So I'm taking Rising Water. This card says -2 from each fighter's move characteristic to a minimum of 0 in the next activation step. You're really affecting Stalagquig here, but I think anytime you can basically blanket a -2 movement to somebody right before their turn is pretty huge. Because typically going into somebody's turn, like you start to stack up stuff, right? Like we've all done it, where you'll start to stack cards, you'll stack a movement, membranous wings or whatever on there, and just try and get them to plus move, and they're trying to get somewhere in your territory to get on an objective or something like that. And you just play this card and you say, you're probably not going to make where you want to go. Alternatively, in pre-show, Jared brought up a good point of, if you're playing this against Canaan's Reapers and you just blanket -2 all of their movement shenanigans for an entire turn, it's pretty big. So
yeah, and just to comment on it, I think the other reason that this card rises to the top here is the Rivals format. Like we're not making our own decks. We don't have those +2 movement everywhere. You're kind of reliant on the fighter card. Trace smirked when I said rising to the top.
I saw it. I heard it. I heard it.
It's just like a whole episode of puns. So yeah, like I will second your nomination for a solid gambit. Jared, what is yours?
Yeah, so I think I like Flitting Shadow. So choose one friendly fighter, push the chosen fighter. What? Did you interrupt me? No? Okay, gosh. I'm hearing things now. Yeah, so Flitting Shadow. Choose one friendly fighter, push the chosen fighter up to 1 hex towards the nearest enemy fighter. I mean, this is good for getting into enemy territory. It's good for getting onto a feature token. I think, in my head, the play that I see is that you wait until your opponent puts a target on a feature token, and then you attack that fighter, drive them back, and then push onto the feature token after. But for anyone that's listened to any of our other Rivals reviews, we love pushes. So we would be remiss if we didn't include at least one. So
there you go. Get that push in.
Push it real good.
Yeah. Push it.
There you go.
For mine, I'm going to cheat a little bit, and I'm going to say there's just a lot of accuracy buffs in here.
Yeah.
So you have Whetted Blade, which is a reroll. You have Unfair Fight, which can stagger somebody. Before, plus you would be already supporting. Live for the Fight, which is plus dice. And I want to say there was one more. Brave Companion gives you another support if it's on the attack, right?
Yep.
So, and they also pair very well with some objectives for having to do certain things, and the upgrades. So, just a tip of the hat or the nomination for the accuracy cards that are in your gambits. You are going to hit, and when we get to what type of play style this deck kind of leans into, that's going to be important.
Yep.
So what's left?
Upgrades are left. And I'm going to kick it back to you, Jason.
You can throw it right back to me?
Throw it right back to you. We've gone first every time.
Okay.
Your turn to go first.
Man, now I'm torn to what one I want, what I would like to talk about. And I'm gonna go probably with not the most powerful upgrade that's in this deck. We'll get to that one a little bit later. But I'm gonna go with Master of Shadows. So this one reads: this fighter is a hunter. You can reroll 1 dice in this fighter's attack rolls while this fighter is in a cover hex. So the reason I like this upgrade is the hunter keyword is added, which can play into Find a Path, which is an objective. It also, you kind of want to be in cover hexes or gloom hexes or something that's out there, because you're trying to get Fearless Seekers as well. So I'm going with that.
Nice. Yep, I like it. Trace?
I'm gonna go with Blunt Force Master. As Jason mentioned earlier in our discussion, there's a lot of cool ways to stagger people. So this fighter's range 1 and range 2 attack actions that target an adjacent fighter have stagger. Note the wording there of adjacent. So even if you're range 2, you still have to be adjacent to that fighter. It says reaction after this fighter's successful range 1 or range 2 attack action, push the target 1 hex away from this fighter. We have also discussed that we like pushes. So getting the ability to have stagger on an attack that's adjacent to you, and then also having the optional reaction of pushing a fighter 1 hex is really powerful.
Yeah, it's good stuff. And then we'll round out the upgrade section with I don't know, it may be one of the most popular upgrades in Championship format right now. It is definitely the most powerful upgrade in this deck, and it is Shadowkeeper. So it starts with this fighter is on guard. Just on guard. You charge, cool, you're on guard. You move, cool, you're on guard. You're not doing anything, cool, you're on guard. But it also has a reaction. So after an enemy fighter's failed attack action, if this fighter was the target, was adjacent, and there was 1 or more crit in the defense roll, deal 1 damage to the attacker. So
all the things.
All the things. Yep. Doing extra damage for making your opponent fail their attack is nice. But really it is like just being on guard, because if you can get more than 1 defense dice and you're in a gloom hex and you're on guard, well, now Everything but single supports is a success on your defense roll.
Yeah, it's
Pretty-
super popular out there
Pretty
and
nice.
probably one of the strongest cards in the game currently.
Yeah,
So.
it's pretty good.
Well, good. That's how we're going to start it off with our 3 objectives, 3 gambits, and 3 upgrades. What type of play style does this deck lead us to play?
All aggro all day.
Punch
Aggros.
that dude or dudette in the face.
Yep.
That's what that is.
Right in the face.
Just
Right
like
in the face.
Not in the nether regions.
not in the Nethermaze, no. And I think the other thing that's worth calling out is it's not just aggro, but it's like aggro and you want to live in your opponent's territory. There's a lot in here that requires you to be in your opponent's territory or have fighters in your opponent's territory. So you're going to be moving forward. You're going to be trying to attack as many times as you can. One thing that is lacking in the deck is damage upgrades. And this has an impact on which warbands you choose, which we'll get into that in a minute. But it is probably worth noting that most warbands are going to have to stack attacks against their opponents to take fighters out. And that kind of plays into the cards that are available. You have extra accuracy, you have bonuses for support, you have you have cards for helping move fighters next to opponents and set up supports and all of those things. But yeah, it's just note that there are no damage upgrades. You're not no +1 damage cards in here. So
there are other ways to get damage, and there is one +1 damage, but it's very so Searing Ink, you can do damage back to somebody, and
That's
heroic end is a plus damage, but you have to be vulnerable, right, to play it.
Yeah.
So it's probably not going to come out all that often. In Rivals, maybe it does because you do get whittled down, but still to have 1 health left is a rarity in this game. Just to further expand upon what you guys are saying, living in someone else's territory, there's Waterlog Map, which is an upgrade for your leader at the end of the game. If they're in enemy territory, you get +1 glory. And this deck only has 16 base glory in it. You're probably not going to score it all. You're probably looking at 13 or 14 plus your kills. So you may need that to put it over the top. So aggro is the play style. So what warbands do we want to try it out with? What do we think is going to be successful?
So before we move on to that, I have a question. Just as somebody who's not playing as often. When you look at this deck, do you feel like it reliably scores more glory than the other 2 previously released Rivals decks?
I think it probably scores more than Silent Menace. I think it's probably on par with Illusory Might. And that's largely due to the fact that like Illusory Might is all illusion. Like it's built to do what it does.
So there's some synergy there, right?
Yeah. And I think the same can be said for this one.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
curious.
that's good assessment. The biggest thing we're running into in the Rivals Plus format is the essentials, right? Like how do we get, when you get to take your warband deck and the damage from essentials, where does this one live? And really where it lives is the 4 surges, the Contest of Equals in Cold Blood, Reckless Swing, and Unequal Contest.
Those are way better surges than what's available in essentials.
Yeah,
I think the best surge in essentials is Branching Fate.
Yeah.
Branching Fate. Yeah. I mean, kind of strong start.
Yeah.
Kind of.
But
yeah.
kind of like it sits in that weird space of if you draw into it after you just killed somebody, that just sucks and feels bad.
In there.
I think where it lives, to back to your main question, Trace, is Illusionary Might, to me, and I know that there are other reviewers out there that have said it should be a smaller warband. I think that deck for me plays well in a larger warband that has expendable fighters that you're leveraging the illusions to run in. This one feels like a smaller elite warband deck to me, and that's what I really like. Is now we have 2 rivals decks that kind of fill that space for someone that may need a rivals deck.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the follow-up question. If you're playing Illusory Might, how many base glory does Illusory Might have?
17.
Great question.
So realistically,
16. We're back
Same
to
as this one.
16.
Realistically, how many glory do you think you'll score on average?
An Illusory Might?
10?
12,
9?
because there's one that is a third end phase that you're never going to score. So
Okay. Now for this deck, same thing. You have 16 base glory. Reliably.
I'm getting 12, probably 12 out of this one.
So you think the same?
It's about the same.
Okay. Just trying to offer some outside perspective for people who might be like weighing the two, right?
Yeah.
If you're looking at buying a warband, so for example, the new Electric Boogaloo zombies, as I like to call them, you pick up Electric Boogaloo and you're weighing these two options, right? As it sounds like you don't really like the other one, based on what you just said, Jason, probably would play better. So Illusory Might works better potentially with a higher model count warband. If you're looking to play the Rivals deck and not the one that's in the box itself.
The warband. Yep.
Yeah.
So just trying to give some perspective for those who might be listening and dipping their toe into it, just to give a little further analysis to it that we really probably haven't gone into before, which is what you think that you might score each round.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, I think you make a great point there, because to play this deck, you have 3 warbands. You have Truth Seekers, you have Cunning Crew, and you have Buccaneers. And Buccaneers is probably like one of the hardest rivals decks to get function. And the fact that I now just in Harrow Deep have this deck to play, to segue to the warbands, Buccaneers on my list.
Yeah.
I think that this is a better Buccaneers deck. And then, you're not going to get all the swag counter shenanigans that he likes, but I think I can make this. And there are 2 weapon upgrades, so I can leverage the Noblars and the Monkey and the Contest of Equals, in Cold Blood and Unequal Contest. I'm sorry. Like, he likes those. Fearless Seekers is good for him. Like, I like this deck for Rivals Buccaneers player.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I just think it's just interesting analysis to kind of go through and think. Because like when you look at Silent Menace, which I know was not really potentially designed as originally a Rivals deck per se. It just doesn't feel like it is made with the same mindset in mind as these past 2 have been. But when you look at that, you're like, how am I going to score any of this? None of it makes any sense. Half of it works against each other. So it's just fun to look at. But I think Black Powder is probably a good shout for that, for sure.
Yeah.
So give me another shout. What other warband we like?
Anybody who wants to just be aggressive and potentially can survive. So for those Crushes players in the back.
Or the front, because that's where the Crushes live.
Right.
Yeah. So one of the things that we called out was the lack of damage upgrades. So any warband that's got 3 damage out the gate is nice. So Steelheart's Champions. 2 fighters with 2 smash for 3 damage. Uninspired. It's pretty nice.
Yeah. And that may be where I want to play the Buccaneer because he just got painted back, and I think that for our new players that are out there that have picked up the stuff, this deck is good for that. But for me, I've never, that Steelhearts has never been on the board.
Really?
Steelhearts, yeah. So look
Go.
out. Here it comes. I agree with that.
There we go.
But in the pre-show, Jared, you mentioned another warband, and I'm not going to take that thunder because I think it is a great call out for this deck.
Yeah, so there's a warband that's really cool. That's got really potent fighters, but they have an awful rivals deck, and that's the Iron Souls Condemners. So you're running into the same problem. They only have 4 surges. These 4 surges are way better than the 4 surges in their deck, and then there's other stuff in here that's really good for them too. The extra pushes, the accuracy, like being able to throw stagger on. Yeah, I think that they would be a lot of fun.
I think just in general, their cards and their faction cards are not great. Like,
they've got some good ploys.
Yeah.
It's
you
their
can
objective
probably
deck
hold up
that's-
3 fingers and think about the best cards in that set of cards right there. Probably 3 fingers, maybe 4.
Yeah, it's their objective deck, in my opinion, that really holds them back.
100%. Yeah.
And that's where this is like choice.
Yeah.
So what I'm gonna throw one of you guys talked about it earlier and joking, but somebody is sitting on a Mollog somewhere. Do you play this deck with Mollog?
You could. I mean, it definitely brings Mollog into the Rivals format because he doesn't have his own Rivals deck. And I think anything before this is not great for him. So you can definitely leverage this deck with Mollog. The surges. The problem is the rest of his fighters don't hold objectives. So
Yeah, but I don't think anything requires you to hold, right? It's just be on feature tokens, right?
Mm-hmm.
Fearless Seekers is on feature tokens.
Okay. Yeah.
And Find a Path is on edge hexes.
Yeah. No, you're right. So
That's
you're
it.
good. So you got accuracy, you got everything that you can score. The other point is like the weapon upgrades, you could put him on Mollog, but I don't think he cares.
No.
But he can move people around though. So like if you go back to the card that I talked about, the upgrade that I talked about.
Oh yeah, the Blunt Force Master.
He now gains a push as a reaction to his attack. So if Morgok, for example, is sitting right on top of him, he's got 2 health left or whatever, and he's just trying to make some space. He knows he's not going to kill him, but he knows that if you push him back 1 hex as a reaction after you hit, right? So if you successfully hit, you push back, you're doing 3 damage, so you may have 2 damage left. You push him 1 hex away. Now he has to charge you.
Yeah.
Unless he has a push of his own.
Well, and I'm going to jump in. So it says after the attack action. So you could hit him, drive him back, and then react with that. And so now he's 2 away. So even if he can't use his push action with a wide counter to get there. He can't use a sidestep to get back next to you. It really creates some space between Mollog and another fighter.
Just as somebody who's played that warband, it's a different way of looking at it because you can now use him as a control piece and not just a beat stick.
Yeah.
I mean, it's 1 card, but it's just something to think about.
Yeah. Put Shadowkeeper on that bat squig and throw him in a cover hex.
No, put it on Mollog himself.
No.
Yeah.
Don't start with that.
Is Mollog a brawler?
I don't know the answer to that question. That is the hardest thing to keep up.
I would be surprised if he's not.
Because if he is a brawler, homeboy needs some unfazed, get +1 defense.
God, you're breaking the game for Rivals already. What are you guys doing?
Yeah, we got.
You can
chosen asses.
You can take the player out of the game, but you can't take the game out of the player.
No. So Mollog's mob has got Batsquig is flying beast minion. The Shroom is beast minion. Selexi was beast minion. No Mollog. Thank the Lord.
Oh, no brawler Mollog. Brawlog. Dang.
But yeah, no brawl on Mollog. Sorry.
Mollog.
Brawl on Mollog.
Darn.
Just trying to tickle the
You know who
brains
is a brawler though? You know who is?
Gallinghan.
Black Powder.
Gallinghan.
Fixed it. Totally fixed it.
Stop trying to make Giltaris happen.
All right,
No,
we're starting to drag.
I
Yeah, we are
welcome you
dragging.
to try. I welcome you to try.
New player rating.
Yeah, no, wait. So then the other two that we had on here, other than Mollog, but I do think that is a viable option: Nurgle and the Ravagers.
Yeah.
Ravagers are probably not going to inspire, but 4 fighters that are pretty beefy. And then Jared, you asked new player rating, and I like the deck. I think it's a solid Rivals deck, but I'm going to give it a silver only based on the synergies that are within the deck. So it's not for a new player. I wouldn't say it's the most straightforward, because there are some objectives specifically that need keywords, like, in cold blood is better if you're an assassin. And I'm pretty sure that there is a card in here that makes you an assassin. Yes, Darkening Stone. Darkening Stone and Master of Shadows pair really well together. Now you're assassin and a hunter, and you're always in a cover hex. So like, there's just those type of those synergies in the deck that, for a brand new player, maybe not as straightforward. So it gets the silver.
Yeah.
But hopefully what came across, I know, we definitely went more in depth than we had in other previous rival decks. I hope it really comes across of how excited we are as a group to have another Rivals deck to mess around with, bring back maybe some old war bands, try out some new war bands. And thank you, GW, for the additional content that allows me to use my cards in another way. So with that, we'll take a break and we'll come back and talk about all the new stuff.
And we're back. And having covered the Mage's Breachers Rivals deck, we are now ready to talk about the newly announced Nethermaze, which is going up for pre-order on Saturday alongside the Exiled Dead, alongside the Rivals of the Harrow Deep box. So lots of stuff for sale. I guess, really the big deal, the big announcement is we know what the next core set is. We know that it's the Nethermaze, and we know that there are K-Knight Shadow Stalkers, which is super exciting.
Wow. Can't wait for
Can I just say, this might be my favorite box art that they've ever done.
It is really good box art. You can totally say that, Trace.
They're all good, but this one, for whatever reason,
yeah,
it's because it's purple and teal.
It's purple and teal. It's got you and Jason written all over it.
Right.
So good.
But the art is just awesome. And I'm totally fanboying a little bit over it, but it's so good. It's so good.
Yeah, it's an excellent color palette, and like the art style is really good. Yeah.
You have assassin rats and
assassin elves.
Elves. What's not to like? It's super cool.
Yeah.
When I'm excited about the Shadow Elves is like, they were really exciting when they came to Warcry, but I've never got to play them. And I know at least here I'll get to play them.
Yeah.
And that guy with the crossbow is pretty cool.
Like a ninja. Like a mask on and everything.
Yeah, and then the cape's keeping them kind of that cloaked in shadow kind of look to them, and they are very fitting for this setting that is Underworlds. But what are your thoughts on this? So this is the first time we've seen a second seasonal starter set.
Yeah. No, I think it's nice that we're getting more boards than we normally would in a Jason is on video shaking. No, because there's always the board packs.
There's always been a way that and I'm glad that you brought that up.
Yeah, that's actually
because that's where I was going.
Yeah.
Is in every season they've found a way to give us an add-on, whether it was a gift pack, a board pack, Arena Mortis pack. They found a way to introduce more boards into the game, and really you were buying universals and boards for the full game. Here it's not hidden. Like, it's a starter set. You get, just to throw out the numbers, because I'm sure there's some people out there, oh, I got to buy another starter set. There's 48 Universals and 39 Grand Alliance cards.
36.
36. So 84?
Yes.
That's 84 Universal style cards that you're getting in this set with the boards. And the boards typically, what did we pay for Arena Morris? Was it like $40?
It's like 50 something last time.
Oh, the last one might have been 50. You're right. For some boards.
Yep. One board
and some cards.
Yeah.
Cards, mind you, that have some verbiage that only affect Arena Mortis.
That
with like
that game.
The resurrect
raise,
tokens and
raise
stuff
token.
like that. So arguably, like if you're looking at it from that particular point of view, right? There's much less value in that box than there is in this one.
Yeah, and then also the writing got, like, I shouldn't say the writing, the actions of the cards sometimes got wonky, and we saw some of the most powerful cards creep in from Championship from a set that was most likely designed to support the game it was with. And the bolt-on was the Championship mode. But anyway, like, I guess my other question, as I take over the segment again and just push Jared out, is what are the thoughts on like an additional Skaven warband? Because now that's a kind
I love it because before it was more of the traditional like clan rat. You had kind of the hierarchy, right? You had your Storm Vermin, which was Scritch. Then you had like a clan rat in there, and then you also had some Skaven slaves. And like one of them was an assassin, so one of them was more of like a Night Runner. But this is just a straight faction of Night Runners and assassins, and it's super cool.
Yeah.
So you're leaning more into the clan Eshin instead of like some of the other clans. I forgot the name of them. And then there's Molder. Molder is more of like the rat abominations. Pestilence is all the plague monks. Can't remember the name of it. I'm sure.
Skyer is the engineers.
Skyer is the engineer, the Warplock engineers, and then there's one other one, but I can't think of what it is. It doesn't matter.
These are definitely Eshin. Like, it's not just leaning into Eshin. Like, they're called out as being clan Eshin.
They're straight up Eshin. Yeah.
I think I like that it's like assassin v assassin.
Yeah.
Just like a new take on a starter. Right? So it was Order versus Chaos, and then it was Order versus Spoopy Ghosts, and then it was Beast versus Beasts, and then it was Elves versus Slanesh. So it's always been like kind of like opposites.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's just like, no, it's like murder people versus murder people. So thematically, I think it's cool. But to get back to your original question, Jason, like, I think releasing a new core set gives opportunities for like rules to be tightened up or different ways to play the game to be introduced. So you could buy the starter box and just play Warhammer Underworlds, right? With Celestis and Dreepers, Wraith Creepers. But each season introduces a new mechanic or a new way to play. Like we saw cover hexes and delving appear for the first time in Harrow Deep. And I mean, I don't know what's coming in Nethermaze, but like it could be more of the same. They could add something. They could change the way that something works, and it just provides like a refresh on the way to play. Can we talk about the purple magic dice?
Right. It's going to be really hard for me to use my Grand Alliance dice when those purple magic dice.
Yeah.
They're going to roll all crits all the time.
I do like the one purple lethal too. So like there's some sort of like bubbly thing in there.
Oh, yeah, I can't really some tell, kind of purple smoke going on in there or something. Yeah, that's nice. I mean, we talked about this.
We did talk about it before, that the color palette for this season is awesome, and these boards, like, just are visually more stunning than they have been in the past.
Yeah, 100%.
So anyway, we're talking about the color palette. In my opinion, it really is just chef's kiss. But I do want to walk back, talk about the rules. Like we said, we don't know if there are going to be any core rules updates, but one thing that we do know from the video that was released is that there are going to be new keywords on some cards that we haven't seen before. So Jason, do you want to jump into those?
Yeah, so there's a new Gambit, Creaking Ceiling, which is a domain. And like this card just reads, each time a fighter is driven back into an edge hex or a hex adjacent to a blocked hex, deal 1 damage to that fighter, which is cool to get some sort of ping damage back in. But this effect persists until the end of the round or until another domain Gambit is played. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, lethal hexes all over the board now.
And it's funny that they have a picture of a ghost on that.
Yeah.
How fitting.
Well, now that the ghost can take damage from lethal hexes.
Yeah, and so then the other is a map. So like this is a detailed map fragment, and it's got a keyword map, and it's like action. And I can't wait to get your guys' response on this because as a former Relic player, action, gain 1 spent glory point. Pick 1 opponent. That opponent can play 1 upgrade without spending any glory points. Then break this card. Reaction. After an activation step, if this fighter has 4 map upgrades and is holding an objective, gain 2 glory points. Then break each map upgrade this fighter has.
So read that second part again. Read the reaction again.
So the reaction is, so you have to have 4 map upgrades, and you react after an activation step, right? You have to be holding an objective, and then you gain 2 glory points. And they're not spent, they're straight up glory points. So you're spending 4 and getting 2, but that's a reaction. The single spent glory is an action, so you're losing an activation, but you're gaining a glory. Then you're giving your opponent a free upgrade.
And breaking the card, though.
And breaking the card, like the card goes away.
I wonder if all of the map cards have that same action. Because then you could gain 4 spent glory, but give your opponent 4 free upgrades. The relic thing to gain glory was an action, right?
It was.
But you could do it over and over and over again.
You could do it over and over.
Yeah.
And you didn't have to be on an objective.
No.
I mean, the chances of getting the exact 4 upgrades that you want on a fighter early or in time to like be able to do this reaction seem pretty slim. I do like that there is a cost to doing the action. And I think that there are some people out there that would say that spending an action to gain a glory, spent or otherwise, might be worth it.
It is worth it. Now, what I will say is I like the internal balance on the card, which is you can do this 1 time and you're done.
Yeah.
Which is big because that's something that's been pretty heavily abused previously. So getting it 1 time, getting your glory, that glory might win you a game, but it's not going to let you just run away with a game. Like you can't pad your stats with it. So if you're playing in a tournament or whatever, you can't just sit there and stack up glory to get your glory diff higher to have a better chance of having a tiebreaker.
Yeah.
So I like that just from the standpoint of it's a 1-time use. And within that 1-time use, your opponent is getting something out of it. Right? So like you gain a glory for free, basically. Break the card. Then your opponent gets to equip an upgrade, which is nice. That still feels balanced to me. versus just being like, oh, I'm just gonna get a glory. There's nothing you can do about it, and you don't benefit anything. Like there's nothing you can do. So,
Yeah, it's definitely more balanced or well written or game impact more thought out than the relics were.
it's so sorry. The thing that it does is it takes a passive card and makes it interactive, which is what I like.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's true.
and it's one use. So
Yep.
Cool. The last preview card doesn't really add any rules or keywords. It's just a spell. So Quintox Bubble, Gamut spell on a channel. If cast, choose one friendly fighter within 4 hexes of the caster. -1 damage to attack actions that target the chosen fighter to a minimum of 1, and the chosen fighter has the flying trait. This effect persists until the chosen fighter is dealt damage. So it's pretty cool. It just lasts forever until they're dealt damage. And it's cool to see a spell come back in because spells there haven't been very many decent ones. That sounds like a solid one.
Yeah, I mean it's a free, not a free, but like it's a Gambit version of a Potion of Constitution or Hail Charm or insert upgrade here. Obviously it goes away once you take damage, but I mean that could mean the difference between going out of action and not going out of action, like on the last activation, for example, or just going out of action or not going out of action on any activation. So I like it.
Cool. Well, that's kind of the core set. I mean, we like the models. We like the direction that it's going. There has been a controversial thing out there with a new season starter. There's a lot of people that are worried about rotation, and I guess it's a real thing because we've always seen when a new season comes out that we rotate out the old season, and that would be if that holds true. So we would just have Hero Deep and Nethermaze, and all of Dire Chasm would be gone from Championship. It is my opinion that I just don't see that happening. But there's no official statement as of yet. I just don't. I mean, like we'd have the smallest card pool that we've had since season 1,
the start of the game.
Yeah, and I just don't. I think that given the momentum that is Rivals and the kind of the focus that is around Rivals, the season starter sets make sense. It provides more jump-in points to newer players. It allows GW to just generate more revenue because there's more stuff in the box, right? They're going up against numbers from a previous year. This gives us content like we already talked about. Like you're not hiding cards in a gift pack. You're not hiding boards in something else. It kind of lumps it all together. I just don't. It is my opinion. I don't think that it's going to rotate out. I think that we will see the same progression where these kind of 6 season boxes live and breathe the same content amount as what full seasons or traditional seasons were. And that actually excites me. I did post something on Facebook. I don't often do that, but I kind of gave my content of like, this really solves a problem that I had with the game. Like if this turns out to be true, I always felt gypped that last warband of the season that came out.
Yeah.
Because they're typically designed in that season. So they had keywords, Hunter Quarry comes to mind. And that warband only had about 18 months before the new season, or not the new season, but the next season that rotated its cards out came out. Because they would come out, then like 2 to 3 months later, the next season would come out and everything was fine. Their season stayed in. Then a year later, the new season would come out. So about 14 months and all those cards would drop off. If this holds true with the 4 seasons or 2 seasons a year, and they still want to keep that same rotation, now that warband that comes out, and we'll use the Exiled Dead, right? They're coming out, like they're going to get a full 2 years worth of full season cards. It also allows the game to keep more universals all the time instead of rotating an entire season.
Yeah.
When that you're rotating a half in season is a season, so it's still going to be rotating a whole season, but you're rotating 80 cards instead of 300 cards, wherever we were. So
yeah. I mean, I think, really the only thing that we have to go on is history, right? And historically, there have been 2 years worth of universal cards available in championship format at any given time. And I mean, yeah, I'm with you, Jason. I'm of the opinion that if they continue in that trend, it will be good for the game. It creates more starting off points. It creates longer lived, functionality for warbands. Yeah,
and to further, double down on the starting points or functionality, the Rivals of Harrow Deep. So 6 months later, they're coming out with a Rivals pack that gives you Xandire's Truth Seekers and the Cunning Crew with just the Rivals decks. So you don't need to buy any of the boards or the exaggerated price to get all the universal cards. So if Rivals is your thing, and you want to get into the game and you want to jump in at this point, you now have a much easier way of getting caught up or getting more warbands. Trace, like, what are your thoughts? Because you're our Rivals player now. Like, would you have wished you would have waited to just buy 2 warbands?
No.
You still want all this stuff?
Well, so here's my thing is, I just don't think that that's going to be nearly as good of a value, right? If you're looking at it from a cost perspective, but I could be wrong. And if I am wrong, I'll buy one and we'll give it away. Something like that.
So the last thing we have here, and I know Jared and I talked about the electric slide zombies last cast, but Trace, you weren't on. You almost just spit Mountain Dew everywhere.
I sure did.
What's your take on that warband? Because they also come out at the same time.
The models, you mean?
Yeah.
Or just in general?
Just in general.
I've seen the scuttlebutt around the internet that a lot of folks aren't hugely amazed with the models. Now, what I do like about them is they fall in line with the current zombie aesthetic that goes with the vampire counts, like with the Soulblight Gravelords that are out right now. They don't have branches growing out of them and roots and headstones stuck to them. So I appreciate the Frankenstein aspect of it, because it's a little twist on the current range of zombies. But what I do like about it is that the vampire that's in there does not look like any of the traditional vampires that are in the game right now. And it gives me some strong old school Warhammer Fantasy Necrarch vampire vibes. So you have the Blood Dragons, and the Kallistai Dynasty is now what they're called. But the Blood Dragons were like your super martial prowess, and then you had the Von Karsteins, and then you had the Necrarchs, and then you had the Strigoi. And the Strigoi eventually became like what is now Flesh Eater Courts. Those are the same models.
Yeah.
Or the same style of model. It's like the bestial aspects of vampirism. But I really like that this is like a necromancer, dark arts style vampire versus the other ones that we have currently. So I dig it. I like them. I think that they're cool. They're a little static. I will say that they're a little static based on what we've kind of come to.
Static. Get it.
There you go. Somebody picked up on it. But they look a little stiff. They don't have as much motion.
Oh my goodness! All right,
we're like a dead stiff.
Yeah, a little stiff.
Oh, all right. This segment is dead.
No.
So with that's kind of our jumping to Nethermaze that comes out in a couple Saturdays here.
Yep.
Really can't wait. Lots of Rivals decks to be played. Again,
Yes.
I'm stealing Jared's thunder. He's supposed to be leading this, but it's fine. I got it.
Technical difficulties, man. You don't know where I'm going.
Shocking.
Well, no, and I think one thing that can be said is that in 2 weeks' time we're gonna have our hands full with 3 new Rivals level warbands to review. So that's exciting / intimidating. Spend another 3 hours recording an episode again. It'll be great.
Yeah, that'll be. I got to get some games in.
Yeah,
and I think you and I are going to fight about the elves. So
it's fine. I'll play whatever. I'll play rats.
Elf on elf, man.
Elf on elf, some sweet elf action.
Elf on elf.
All right. So if I'm taking the reins back, and that's fine because we're done. We'll end this segment. We'll take a break. We'll come back. We'll close out the show. And we're back, and that will wrap us up for the 37th episode of the Battle Mallet podcast. You can find us on all of the podcasting apps, although you're probably already listening to us. So I don't know why I said that, but you can subscribe or like or follow or whatever it is that you do on that app, and we'd appreciate it. We are Battle Mallet 1 on Twitter, Battle Mallet PCast on Instagram, and we're the Battle Mallet podcast on Facebook. So yeah, you can find us all there. We have a Discord. The links for all of these are in the show notes, along with a link to a blog post with a written up review of the Maze Breachers Rivals deck. So I think that's all the needful out of the way.
Yeah, just a shout out for the Discord though, because we've had Gerard the Professor come hang out with us a couple nights, and then we also had Beard Arm jump in, and if you're out there, we're typically on about 9:00 Eastern almost every night of the week.
Yep.
Pop on in, give us some comments, paint some minis, assemble minis, just chat it up. We love to have people stop in and have good old hobby talk conversation.
Yeah. Even if you're not hobbying. Even if you're like just chilling out at your computer playing some video games and you want to talk to some people, you know, come do that, because Lord knows I do that sometimes. So
true, it's good times. So we got gaming coming up tomorrow. Trace, are you gonna be able to make it out for that or no?
I don't know. Okay. I hope so. I don't know.
Cool.
With Jenny and James being out of town this weekend, it may affect that. So
yeah, that's fair. Family time, it's important.
Yeah, balancing life and games. Yeah,
that's right. And Jason, I'm not gonna say anything about your life circumstances because I don't want to jinx you one way or another. So
well, tomorrow is purely work. So
okay,
I will be I'll be out and about 4 hours away tomorrow evening in Greenville, South Carolina. So
okay. That's exciting.
Be safe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All that driving.
Yeah.
So well, cool. So lots to look forward to.
Yeah, lots to look forward to. And I did forget one thing that I'm just going to give a shout out real quick now, because this is a Rivals episode. Huge activity in the UK this weekend around Underworlds. It looks like 3 tournaments, definitely 2, but to me, like looking on the Facebooks, 3. And again, all Rivals plus tournaments. So 18 players, and 24 players. So there's a lot of talk again on the US side that we're kind of stagnant. But this Rivals Plus format seems to be really taking off elsewhere. So thank you for what all those community leaders are doing out there to drive these games. Keep it going. And with that.
Yeah. I think we have stuff to look forward to too. You mentioned this before, but with the organized play kits coming back, I think there's a good shot that we'll see some organized play coming back in our community and in communities across America. And hopefully Nova will be huge and awesome and overwhelming. So I guess that's it. So for the Battle Mallet podcast, we are 3 rivals.
Now we're rivals.
3 breachers.
Okay.
I don't know. That can only get worse. That can only get worse. This is Jared signing out.
This is Trey signing out.
You know, this episode has been a maze, a labyrinth, a nether maze. I'm lost. So I'm Jason Table Murray. And get the hell out of here. Quick.
Peace.
The Battle Mallet podcast is protected under the Creative Commons license. If you have further questions as to its use, you can find more information via links on podcast.battle-mallet.com. Music by Anno Domini Beats.
This is gonna be a pain in the ass to edit. It'll be awesome.